So something really caught my eye this week, and I gotta say, it made me stop scrolling.
Hmm.
You see, Saudi Arabia just decided to stop issuing visas for 14 countries out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Now, you see stuff like this from time to time, right? But what's weird here, what made me really do a double take, was India being on that list. Like, whoa. When you think about how connected those two countries are, I mean, millions of people going back and forth every year for work, for the Hajj and Umrah, which is huge religiously, and just regular tourism too.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's going on behind the scenes? What's the real reason for this sudden change?
It really does when you think about it. I mean, Saudi Arabia and India, they've got these super strong connections economically, culturally for like forever. So move like this, yeah, we got to dig a little deeper. I mean, they're saying it's about public health and internal security, which, okay, that's always a thing. But it just feels like there's more to the story, you know?
Right, like what else is going on that they're not saying? So to be clear, this is a temporary visa ban. Right now it's affecting 14 countries. And yeah, India is the big one that's raising eyebrows. There are others too, some in Asia, Africa, Middle East.
Uh-huh.
And the official reason, like we said, is to keep things safe and healthy in Saudi Arabia. But you got to remember, Saudi Arabia and India, they go way back.
Oh, yeah, for decades.
Not just because of oil, which is obviously huge, but there's this whole religious and cultural connection too.
Tons of Indian Muslims go to Mecca and Medina every year for the pilgrimage. It's like a super important part of their faith.
Exactly. So seeing them suddenly restrict travel from India, it's a big deal, right? It makes you think, what's changed? Or what are they hoping to achieve with this strategically?
It's a good question.
It makes you wonder, are they kind of turning inward a bit? Like, are they trying to deal with some issues they have at home? Unemployment, for example.
Oh, for sure. That's been a big one for them.
So maybe they're thinking, hey, let's prioritize our own workforce first. Or maybe it's about easing the pressure on public services, less people coming in, less strain on things like healthcare and housing and stuff, right?
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And don't forget about Vision 2030, their big plan to totally transform their economy and move away from just relying on oil.
Oh, yeah, right. Vision 2030.
This visa ban, you could totally see it through that lens too. Like maybe it's their way of adjusting their labor market, Maybe they're focusing on attracting people with certain skills that they need for these new sectors they're trying to build up, like tech and tourism. And in the meantime, maybe they're trying to slow down the flow of people into more traditional jobs. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So it might not be about just cutting down the numbers overall, but about actually changing like the type of foreign workers they have so it matches their economic goals for the future.
Exactly.
But here's where things get kind of tricky because there could be some like serious downsides to all of this, both for Saudi Arabia and for the wider world. Saudi Arabia's economy, historically, has been really dependent on foreign workers, right?
Totally.
And a good chunk of those workers come from places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. We're talking construction, services, even some parts of their healthcare system rely on these workers. So if you suddenly ban them from coming in, it could really mess things up.
It could. I mean, all these systems are built around having that foreign workforce, Like they're counting on these people, their expertise, their labor. It's woven into everything. So if you suddenly cut that off or even just really reduce it, it's going to cause delays, inefficiencies across all sorts of
Oh,
industries.
yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's the whole global energy market thing, right?
Right.
Like any kind of slowdown in Saudi Arabia's economy, even in sectors that aren't directly related to oil production, could still have an impact.
Uh-huh.
If things slow down even a little bit, it could affect their oil supply chain and eventually global oil prices.
Right, because they're such a major player.
Huge player.
We can't forget about India either, right? Think about all the money that Indian workers in Saudi Arabia send back home to their families. It's a lot.
It's a massive part of their economy.
So this visa ban could hit them hard. I mean, that's a lot of families who rely on that income.
Absolutely. And, zooming out a bit, you got to think about what this means geopolitically for the whole world. The big players, the U.S., China, even Saudi Arabia's neighbors in the Gulf, they're all watching this super closely. It's like Saudi Arabia is sending a message saying, hey, we're in control here. We decide who comes in, post-pandemic world. These are our borders.
Right.
And it's almost a test, Like how are other countries going to react to this? Will they try to negotiate? Will they retaliate in some way? Or will they just accept it, respect Saudi Arabia's decision as a sovereign nation?
Yeah. It feels like a pretty bold move. It could definitely change things up in the region. Some people might think it's a smart strategic move for Saudi Arabia, but others are going to be worried, right? It could cause some tension, some friction in relationships that have been pretty stable for a long time.
Of course. When a country as powerful as Saudi Arabia suddenly restricts access like this, it's going to create uncertainty. People are going to start asking questions like, what does this mean for future collaborations?
Right. It's understandable. So what's been the reaction so far?
Well, from what I've heard, the Indian government has been pretty careful. They're going through diplomatic channels trying to get some clarification, which makes sense.
Yeah.
They want to understand why this is happening, how long it's going to last, but they're not like making a big public scene about it, at least not yet.
And what about the media? I bet they're having a field day with this.
Oh, absolutely. Coverage has been all over the place. Some are saying, Saudi Arabia has every right to do this. It's their country. They can control their borders. But then others are questioning the timing, saying it doesn't really make sense, and they're pointing out that Saudi Arabia hasn't really explained themselves very well.
Yeah, and they're worried about the long-term consequences,
Mm.
especially for the people of the countries that are affected, right? Like,
Yeah,
what's going to happen to them?
exactly. And then you've got the human side of this too, right? The people who had trips planned, the people whose jobs depend on being able to travel between these countries. They're frustrated, they're confused, they don't know what to do.
What a mess.
It is.
And, this is all happening against the backdrop of, like, Saudi Arabia's whole push to redefine itself on the global stage,
Mhm.
right? They're trying to get away from oil. They're making new alliances. And now it looks like they're using immigration policy as a way to flex their muscles, diplomatically speaking.
It's interesting, right? You can see how all these pieces fit together. Maybe this visa ban isn't about just one thing. Maybe it's a combination of factors. They're trying to manage their domestic workforce. They're trying to assert themselves in the region. And maybe they're trying to send a signal to the rest of the world about where they stand on certain things. So, yeah, maybe it's not just about visas. Maybe it's all part of a bigger plan.
The bigger strategy, yeah.
Yeah.
So putting it all together, this Saudi visa ban, especially the fact that India is on the list, it's a lot more complicated than it seems at first glance.
Way more
We're
complicated.
talking about health, economics, geopolitics, power dynamics, the whole shebang.
Hmm.
And the long-term effects, nobody really knows. I mean, is this just a temporary thing, a reaction to something specific that's maybe happening behind the scenes? Or is this a sign of a bigger shift in how Saudi Arabia sees itself and its role in the world? That's the big question, right?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
Yeah.
So here's something for you to think about at home, listening to all of this. When you consider everything we've talked about, the official reasons, the history, the potential economic impact, the whole geopolitical angle, what do you think? Is this visa ban really about security and health, like they're saying? Or is it part of something bigger, a long-term strategy for Saudi Arabia? What stands out to you?
It's definitely something to keep an eye on, that's for sure. This whole situation just shows how interconnected our world really is. When one country changes its immigration policies, it can have ripple effects all over the planet, affecting economies, international relations, and the lives of millions of people. So yeah, staying informed, understanding what's happening in the world, it's more important than ever.